afternoon to ladies and gentlemen, surveyors. I think we're expecting quite a number more, but we want to be prompt with time, so we'll start as planned, although 10 minutes late. Given that it's a working day, we don't want to waste too much time if we can avoid it. So you're all warmly welcome to this very all-important, shall I say, is a CPD session, but a special one as such, which we'll be looking at a very important service we deliver to the nation. The caption for the session this afternoon is the forum for all members serving on the ETCs, the regional committees, and then boards on behalf of the institution representing our noble service within the government's operational services. We won't waste too much time. I would like to call the meeting to order and hand over to our MC to follow the necessary proceedings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Surveyor Stanley Wood, the CPD Chair. Fellow surveyors, ladies and gentlemen, shall we please rise and take our opening prayer. Eternal God of mercy, we thank you, we bless you for a time like this. We are gathered in your presence this afternoon. We ask that you take us through the session in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be upstanding. Let's take our institution anthem. Please be seated. I want to do some few acknowledgements. We have in our presence this afternoon the Vice President of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors in the person of Surveyor Osei Ajimambedu. We also have in our midst, though I've introduced him already, but I still have to mention his name, Surveyor Steiner Wood. He's the CPD chair. Then Surveyor Professor Gabriel Nani is the vice chair of QS division. We have Surveyor Michael Frimpong, past AQS president. Shadow Vice President. Then let's also acknowledge all our members coming from other regions. Let's see by hand all those who are here. I can see Surveyor from Paul, Ione, Philip, and all those guys. You are all welcome. Thanks so much for the effort you put in to be here. Next on the program, we want to move very fast. Next on the program, we have in our midst, he is now the father of the division, a remarkable gentleman, affable, Surveyor Nana Nuyama Che Bafo. He is the chair of the division and also a past honorary secretary of the Snowball Institution. Sir, we want to invite you to the podium to give us your opening remarks. Put your hands together for him.
Thank you very much, Xavier Ann, for that introduction. He's a friend, so he knows my in and out, so he can better describe me. I don't know if that meets the requirement, the specifications. Once again, welcome. I'm here to do the opening remark. I was initially told some bit of purpose of gathering as well, so please, you bear with me. Maybe it may be lengthy, but I'm sure the meats that we would take from here will set the stage for this particular all-important forum that we want to undertake this afternoon. So, distinguished facilitator and vice president of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, Surveyor Osei Ajimambedu, fellows and senior members of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, herein gathered, members of the Quantity Surveying Division, representatives serving on entities, tender committees, tender review and tender boards across our various institutions in the country. Invited guests, I believe we have some of them here who are not main members, but they are here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon once again. It is both an honor and a privilege to welcome all of you to this very important capacity building training program or forum organized by the CPD subcommittee of the Quantity Surveying Division of the Ghana Institute of Surveyors. Today's gathering is not merely another professional meeting on our calendar. It is a strategic intervention. It is a deliberate call to strengthen professional competence, ethical responsibility, institutional confidence, and national accountability within Ghana's public procurement and contract administration systems. As quantity surveyors, we occupy a unique and highly sensitive position in the governance architecture of public expenditure. Every day, decisions are made at the level of entity, tender committees, tender review committees, and tender boards that directly affects the quality of infrastructure delivery, value for money, public trust, and ultimately national development. The truth is that procurement decisions are no longer viewed simply as administrative procedures. They are now recognized as critical governance decisions with economic, legal, financial, and ethical consequences. And that is why your role matters. Ladies and gentlemen, across the country, our members have been nominated to serve on various tender committees and boards because society recognizes that quantity surveyors bring discipline, objectivity, technical competence, analytical thinking, and integrity into decision-making processes. However, nomination alone is not enough. The modern procurement environment is becoming increasingly complex, and we are confronted with evolving procurement laws, heightened public scrutiny, audit pressures, political influences, stakeholder expectations, contractual disputes, and constant demand for transparency and accountability. In such an environment, professional knowledge cannot remain static. If we are to continue serving effectively and courageously, then continuous professional development must become a necessity, not an option. This training, therefore, seeks to achieve several important objectives, amongst others, to deepen our understanding of our statutory and professional responsibilities on tender committees and boards, to strengthen our capacity to make informed, objective, and defensible procurement decisions, to share practical experiences, challenges, and lessons from the field, to reinforce ethical standards and professional conduct, and ultimately to position quantity surveyors as trusted guardians of value for money and accountability within the government procurement system. Colleagues, the decision we take on tender committees affects real lives. They determine whether schools are properly built, whether hospitals are completed on time, whether roads deliver value for taxpayers, and whether public funds are used responsibly. A single weak procurement decision can compromise an entire project. A single act of professional courage can save the state millions of cedis. This is the magnitude of the responsibilities we carry. That is why this forum is extremely important. I therefore encourage all participants not to approach this program as passive listeners, but as active contributors. Let us engage openly. Let us challenge ideas respectfully. Let us ask difficult questions. Let us interrogate the practical realities we face within these institutions we serve. Most importantly, let's learn from one another. As the Bible says, iron sharpeneth iron. That is why we are here. The strength of our professional institution lies not merely in titles or certifications, but in the collective wisdom, integrity, and competence of its members. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me at this stage to commend my colleague executive and CPD subcommittee and the chair for the planning of and effort invested in organizing this important
together for him one more time. Thank you very much, Chair. So let me quickly do this two acknowledgements. We have in our midst Surveyor Jeffrey Afo, Strategic Plan Implementation Subcommittee Chair, also an ESCO member. Then Surveyor Patrick Mreku, past Honorary Treasurer of this noble institution. I invite to the podium my co-MC for the day, Surveyor Mate, to introduce our facilitator for this afternoon to us. Put your hands together for him.
Thank you, Surveyor Ian. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, respected professionals, and cherished participants. It's a great honor to introduce the facilitator for today's program. Surveyor Osei Achiman Bedu is a highly experienced Ghanaian quant surveyor and a procurement specialist with over 25 years of professional expertise in construction cost management, procurement, contract administration, and infrastructure project supervision. He currently serves as a director for Compo Limited and previously worked as a consultant and technical advisor to the Central Tender Review Board and Committee under the Ministry of Finance, Ghana. He holds an MSc in construction management and a BSc Honors in building technology from Kwame Nkrumah University of Technology, Kumasi. He is a fellow and the current vice president of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors. He has served in several leadership positions within the institution, notably as the immediate past chairman of the Quant Surveying Division and a former Honorary Secretary. Throughout his career, he has participated in the design, procurement, supervision, and contract administration of numerous major infrastructure and educational projects across Ghana, including projects for Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, University of Education Winneba, the Ministry of Education, and Volta River Authority. He has served as a procurement trainer, examiner, and a resource person for professional institutions and government agencies. Surveyor Ajiman Bedu has attended several international professional conferences and training programs in countries such as South Africa, Australia, Brazil, Italy, India, Malaysia, and Singapore, enhancing his expertise in procurement, project management, and infrastructure financing. His extensive technical knowledge, leadership skills, and contribution to the construction industry have made him a respected professional in Ghana and beyond. Distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen, kindly join me in warmly welcoming our facilitator to the podium. Thank you.
So before he comes, we'll crave your indulgence to take the seat because of the presentation. Surveyor Steiner, Chair and Vice, kindly take the seats whilst we all enjoy the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the kind words, MCs. Excited to be here this afternoon. And I'm glad to note that most of us are familiar with what we are going to discuss because we serve on these ETCs, so we've had experiences with working with the ETCs, boards, and other committees. We have to stand here. Okay, so may I know how many of you are coming from the tender review committees? Okay, about 5 of us. Okay, we have 16. Okay. I assume that the rest are all on ETCs and boards. Okay. I note that Dr. Hagan is on the board, right? Or the technical board. Okay, thank you. So So, like the chairman said, there's a tall order for us to ensure that government achieves value for money in all we do in terms of procurement. Please, who's rolling the slides? You don't have. Okay. So we look at briefly the overview of governing boards, technical boards, and committees. Bro. You have a pointer. Sorry, it's a technical challenge we need to address. Okay. Then we look at what the ETCs, TRCs, and the dots are. They have different roles and responsibilities. We look at the composition. It's very important to understand how the composition is, and then the responsibilities that the ETCs have, and then also how the TRCs operate. Then we can have discussions afterwards. This is going to create a problem. Welcome, Surveyor Dazi.
Thank you.
Okay, so I recall that for the last 3 years we have made nominations to these committees and boards, and it's very important we understand what they all do. This is a challenge. Come back. Okay, next slide. Okay. So the governing boards, technical boards, and committees serve distinct and complementary roles within an organization, with the board providing strategic oversight and the committees offering specialized technical expertise. In the past, we've had issues where members of boards, governing boards, have interest in procurement. So if you have a board chair, as it were, who has a very big clout, he would want to interfere in the day-to-day procurement activities of the organizations. So what the amendments sought to do was to make sure that the roles are clearly defined. Who chairs the ETCs
And the rules of the board. The board were telling you that
they are responsible for running the entities. So they should be interested in what goes on. But they are not supposed to be doing the day-to-day activities in terms of procurement. They are supposed to look at oversights, just give direction. So the board will ultimately, for example, approve of the entire procurement plan. If the procurement division submits to management, it's taken to the board for them to give approval, and it is rolled out. It is only when they go for board meetings that we expect that management will brief them on progress to know that the plans they approved are being implemented. And if, for example, there are variations that are very substantial, the board should definitely be apprised of and then also approve. So beyond that, we expect the boards to sit at that level for strategic direction. Next. Okay. So governing boards act as guardians of organizations, focusing on high-level strategic direction, like I said. And then their duties include strategic planning, performance monitoring. Like I said, over the period, you need to be informing the board of how the procurement projects are faring. And then governance and compliance issues. Next. Risk management, policy formulation, appointing leadership. For example, boards are expected to even appoint their CEOs if you look at the corporate structure. Ensuring accountability in the use of public funds. So that's why we want to ask questions, management questions about how they are spending. Then attending meetings regularly and participating actively, maintaining confidentiality of sensitive information. I believe those who sit on boards understand this when I say sensitive information. You don't take what happens in the boardroom outside of the boardroom. Then avoid conflicts of interest and disclose any potential conflicts. So you may be a board member and there may be a procurement activity in the organization that you serve as a board member, anytime there is a conflict between maybe your private agency and the organization, you need to disclose, else you'll be found wanting. Then the roles of the technical committees. I recall that the institution was written to provide people to sit on standards authority. They have some committees, technical in nature. So they act as advisory or working group focusing on specialized operational or technical aspects to support the board's decision making. So they kind of feed by their technical expertise. They work on issues and then feed the board to take decisions. So if you are nominated by the institution to sit on a technical board, you should know your remit. You are not going to do the oversight kind of thing. You're not going to do the day-to-day. You go in, do your technical bits, you submit a report, and then it guides decision making. So they also look at specialized oversight as technical reviews, policy development and recommendations, technical reporting, certain industry standards, project monitoring. That's, they can easily go to the site to verify some information technically and then report on them. Dissemination of information, that they can decide to hold workshops to disseminate information on the technical work that they have done, and then maintain confidentiality of sensitive information. Some of the information you don't need to take outside, and then exercise independent or objective judgment in what you do, because it's very technical in nature. So you can tell that at the board level we have the technical and then the governing boards. Here also you must declare any personal, financial or professional interest in matters under consideration, refrain from participation in discussions or decisions where a conflict exists, then avoid actions that may compromise impartiality or public confidence. So we note that failure to manage conflicts of interest may result in sanctions, reputational damage, or legal consequence. Imagine you sit on a board and something comes up and you are cited that your company participated and you did not declare the interest. It's going to be a very messy situation for you as a professional. Now we look at the ETCs, the entity tender committees. So it is a body within the procuring entity responsible for reviewing and approving procurement activities within established thresholds, ensuring that procurement complies with provisions of the Act, its amendments, and applicable procedures before contract awards are made. And this is established under Section 20 of the law, PPA Act 663 as amended to date. So emphasis is on reviewing and approving. So you review the activities, the processes that they have followed, and then you approve of the procurement before award is given. Next. On the other hand, the tender review committees are independent oversight bodies, also reviewing and granting concurrent approval. And I want to emphasize here, the review committees are not supposed to be prescriptive. If you receive a report, you can't say you should have done it this way, so go and do it this way. You concur. That's why we say concurrent approval. So they would have gone through all the processes and arrived at the best offer and asking you to grant concurrent approval. So all you are saying is that I've looked at everything, I've reviewed every process, every procedure, and I think you are fine. So I'm concurring to your recommendation. You don't add up, you don't subtract, you are concurring to. So if there are issues, you raise the issues for them to address to your satisfaction before you concur to the recommendation. Responsible for reviewing decisions of heads of entities in respect of complaints. So there may be complaints by any of the competing tenderers, and at times it's taken to the review committees to also look at it, because the heads of agencies may not have exhausted addressing such issues. Then under the mandate of the TRCs, they ensure compliance with procurement regulations, transparency, fairness, and the achievement of value under the Procurement Act. It's also established under Section 20F of the law. So if you are serving on a TRC, you should know exactly what your general responsibilities are. Next. So you look at this table and you can tell that all I've said reflects here. You view and approve procurement activities within the entity directly involved in the procurement process within the entity IETC, the ETC, operates at the procurement entity level. responsible for procurement decision making within a particular procurement entity. You work closely with the procurement officers and the evaluation panels if you are on the ETC. But on the TRC, review and concur to recommendations made by the ETC. Let's note here under section 17 of the law, management cannot send a report to a review committee. It is the ETC that sends a report. So the head of agency cannot sit and say, I'm the MD, I'm forwarding a report for approval by the ETC. It has to go through the ETC and forward it to the review committee. Provides independent oversight over various procurement entities, operates at ministerial, department, and agency levels depending on threshold, responsible for reviewing and concurring to recommendations of various MMDAs which request above specified thresholds, and then considers reports submitted by ETCs through the heads of procurement. So I think that is also clear, the differences between how they operate. Then the composition of membership. You look at section 1B, categories A to E, section 1C, also for the metro, municipal, and district assemblies. So what we are saying is that if you look at the membership structure, the ministerial departments and agencies, they operate between A and E. I'll show the tables shortly. And then the local government structure, they operate under schedule 1C. So let's look at the tables. So this schedule 1B, A, category A. You note that this is the structure of the composition. And I've building the where the Ghana institution comes in. So you look at, for example, category A, Legislature, Judiciary, Council of State, and Bank of Ghana. Category A, B, and C are now classified under one threshold in terms of the revised threshold figures, how they operate. So we look here for Parliament, we have 2 members of Parliament from relevant professional bodies. So in their composition, you want to cite 2 members of Parliament from relevant professional bodies. And when we say relevant professional bodies, we understand. The engineers can qualify, surveyors can qualify, and lately, procurement people are very loud. They push to make sure that they are there. Depending on the agency, I always say that if it is an engineering firm, the procurement people have no business being there. But somehow, it all depends on how you're able to push. You look at the judiciary, for example, 3 members of relevant professional bodies. So they have allowed 3. I'm not too sure whether we are here or we are at the legislature. But if you are not there, leadership, try to do the legwork and see how we get there. Council of State, 2 members of professional bodies. And then Bank of Ghana, 2 members of professional bodies. So what happens is that the heads of agencies try to get their friends, and then they come under this and say that it's from a relevant professional body. So they'll get a lawyer and they'll get somebody, but it doesn't help their cause, especially if you are doing procurements of engineering nature. You need people in that field to make sure they support your cause. Next. Category B also has this central management agencies, regional coordinating directors, state-owned, statutory fund management bodies, and independent constitutional bodies. So here you have 2 members of professional bodies, 2 members of professional bodies. So you see that the statutory fund, they say relating to areas of procurement. So here they are clearer. And this is where, when people see the word procurement, the purchase and supply people jump at it. So it's still an area that we should be able to push and make sure that our people get there. Also, the independent constitutional bodies, the same, relevant to procurement. Next. So this just to show the composition of the various ETCs. Category C also has 2 members of professional bodies each, and I think the tertiary institutions, they have 1. So I think we have a rep on KNUST. Yes, they thought about their own first, so at least we had that single slot. But for the other teaching hospitals, I think we have also made nominations to Confanoche, I guess. I believe we have one of our members there. Yes. So it tells you, and like I said, categories A, B, and C, under the latest amendments, have been given the same spend. in terms of, I think I'll come to that table, how much they can spend at the ETC level and then beyond. So we will note that when we get to the next table. Next table, we see the same for category D. This is how the composition is, and the next slide will show us category E. Yes, so this is just for you to know what the composition is in terms of the ETC. We go next. Yes, so like I said, the municipal, metro, and district assemblies, they are the other categories. This is their composition, and you also note later that they use a different review committee to review their procurement above the ETC. So you're looking at the metropolitan, you see the MCE, the Director of Finance, legal officer, 2 chairpersons of committees, works and finance of the assembly, 2 heads of departments with the metro, budget officer, metro coordinating director, and head of procurement as the secretary. The same applies to the municipal and district assemblies. So clearly, you want to see this as a composition, nothing less, nothing more, according to the law. Next. We understand that the composition cannot address, may not be able to address all issues. So the law allows that for a particular procurement, you may co-opt any expert to come and support you in terms of reviewing a particular document and ensure that that person has no voting rights. It's just there to support you. I think in the past, I recall we have had to invite somebody. I think we're doing some lift installation from Kolebu, and we had issues with the technical specifications of the lift to serve whatever purpose. So we had to bring in somebody with that expertise to support our decision making. So the person sits in the meeting, and then you find a way to pay for his service, and then he goes away. And under this amendment, to the chairperson and members of the ETC may delegate their functions in writing. I think previously the chair could not, but now we understand that look, we are in a dynamic society. Something can happen, and the chair has to delegate. So he may delegate to maybe the vice chair or any other member for a very good reason. Any member can also do same. So the law allows for that. Next. Composition also of the TRCs. I think we've done the ETC. So the TRCs also on the 4th schedule, you see the composition. Next slide. So we have the central and the regional. Those of you who know, the law has been amended. Previously we had the ministerial, we had the district, but now it's 2. We have the central and the regional. So like I said, the municipal, metropolitan, and district assemblies, the regional tender review committee feeds that. So if you're operating at those levels, your report will end up at the regional. And the regional has no upper threshold. It's the minimum and then above, like the central does. Otherwise, all other entities, the ministerial departments and agencies, will come under central. So that is the structure we operate with now. And you look at the composition. Central, we have 3 professionals nominated by the, here we are mentioned, engineering, surveyors, and the accountants. So here it's clear. Nobody can take that away from us. And when you come to the regional, we are again mentioned. And the regional is very interesting. You see that we have 7 membership. And in the amendment, because of capacity issues, I recall the discussion was that we should have more professionals there. So if you look at the composition clearly, we have 4 against 3 from government. So if professionals want to work very well, they always have the majority. We have 4 professionals, and we have just the regional minister, coordinating director, and then the attorney general's rep. So if they decide to go by what government wants to push, the 4 professionals are expected to make sure that they bring their professionalism to bear on a particular procurement. So that is the beauty of the regional reviews. So the members here, please note, you have the numbers. So by all means, be assertive and push what is right. Next. So we now look at the responsibilities of the ETCs. Review and approve annual procurement plans and quarterly updates. So you are given a letter from the institution. You are a member of the ETC. So you get to work. You report to the entity head, and they introduce the procurement officer to you. You are supposed to start work. What do you work with? How do you start work? The procurement plan is the base document for all procurements that the entities do. So you should be interested in what goes into the procurement plan. So when you see a procurement plan, don't just look at it like any spreadsheet that you have seen. You know what goes to the procurement plan. The activities have been lined up. They have been described, the work packages described, procurement methods that they will use, the estimated amount, everything in there. The time, processing steps and times are all there. Where they will take the report to for approval are all there. So as a member of the ETC and as a professional coming from the Ghana Institute of Surveyors, we have cost background. So you can see, for example, an activity that has been put in the procurement plan, and when you look at the costs, you can tell straight away that this may not be a realistic cost. So you don't just go and sit there and see that everything that the procurement officer has brought by way of plan, you just sit down and say we have passed it. And these days we even go beyond just the plans and activities. I have a view about this value for money thing, but value for money is inherent in a procurement law, this current law. So you even look at the activity that they want to undertake. You ask yourself as a professional, is this activity worth it? I recall we have in the past cited a report and we said you cannot do this. An agency with clear objectives supervised by a board decided to use half of their total allocation to buy a Mercedes-Benz for the CEO. So you submit such a request, you have the power as a member to say that, look, you don't think it's addressing the objective of the institution, because clearly you have a mandate, and if you're using half your money to buy a high value vehicles for the use of one person, how is it going to inure to the benefit of the institution? So you can ask these questions that relates to value. So when you look at the plans and you study them, and you can even look at the times that they have allocated for the processing. Time for adverts, you know, their minimum periods. You look at where you are seeking the approval from. The officers may even make a mistake. You are coming from maybe a metro assembly, and then they are saying they are going to get their approval from central. These are the things that we expect that you bring your professionalism to bear on them. So you review the plans, then make sure that the amount of spend are tied to the budget volumes. So you can only spend what you have. So if the person has a very nice plan, he's allocated budgets for them, and the volume of money they've been given or the amount they have allocated is far less than that, you have to query that. Where are they going to get money to spend? Realistic timelines, so costing, specifications, and packaging. So as quantity surveyors, we know that we have some idea of benchmark costs. So clearly you bring that to bear and make sure that the plans are realistic. Consistency of programs and activities with policies, objectives. I think I've mentioned this. You exercise sound judgment in some of these things, and then you also ensure that the user departments have been part of the plans. What happens is that some procurement people think that they know it all, so they sit in their office and draw the plans, take it to management, they approve. The user departments do not have any input. You want to buy computers, you want to buy vehicles, you want to do this particular project. You have not talked to the engineering people. So how do you expect them to give you inputs to enrich your plan, make it realistic? So these are things that we expect ETC members to be doing. Then appropriateness of procurement method. So if you are ETC and they bring a plan and single source, you want to ask yourself, why are they using this method? Why not any other method? So you critique the plan and ask the relevant questions. Ensure the necessary concrete advice obtained from the appropriate review, okay, where applicable. Generally, ensure competitiveness, fairness, and transparency of the procurement process leading to recommendation. So you read the report, you have to be looking at three things. Has the process been fair? The procedures they are followed, have they been fair? Have they been transparent? Was there a public opening? You want to inspect the records. So you look at all these things and make sure that at least they have followed the processes under the law. Review and refer to the appropriate, so ETC. When you have satisfied yourself that everything is fine, then you make sure that you refer it to the appropriate review committee. Then you liaise with the procurement unit to receive periodic reports to facilitate contract administration. So you don't approve the item and then you go to sleep. You don't hear anything about it. The next time you hear it's in the news that the agency under which you serve as ETC member, they have done some procurement, and then it's in the news that they have inflated price and it's moved from 2 million to 10 million, and there's so much value about it. How do you feel? As a member, you approved, yes, 1 million. You've not heard anything about it at all. So we are saying that be interested. let them apprise you periodically when you meet. Progress. Fortunately, the secretary to the ATC is always the procurement person, and he's supposed to tell you where they are. Take keen interest in stores and assets of entity and ensure that procedures are followed. So we have, the PP has this disposal of assets, which is also addressed in the law. They have a document to address that. So you'll be there and they hear that, oh, they are auctioning vehicles. Some governments, they are selling some assets, and ETC member, you don't know anything about it. You have to be interested because the ETC is responsible for this. Our meetings should be minimum of 2 weeks notice for every meeting. And I have feedback that some members here are not even notified of the meetings. The entities have a way they do their things. They don't want to, so they send a report to you 2 days at a time. They expect you to read all before you come for the meeting. So in essence, they don't want you to make any valuable input. So when you note that, tell them minimum 2 weeks notice has to be given to you. And then also you meet at least once every quarter. Some of them meet regularly, but at least once every quarter you should meet. So those of you who are not being called, find out what is happening. It is very important. Before they put your name there and say you were absent with apology. I've just learned this afternoon one member's experience where he went for a meeting and he's not been called for a long period, over 3 months, only for him to see the minutes absent with apology all the time. So the sense is that he has not been coming for meetings, but he's not been notified. So you look at, these are the new thresholds, and it's interesting. Now you see it puts a lot of responsibility on the ETCs. First, they had lesser amounts to spend, but now look. So categories A, B, and C, as I refers to, you note that if you do anything 53.9 million, is still considered the ETC. For works, 53.9 million. It doesn't have to go to the central. But first, 50 million above will go. So you look at the jump, 53.9 million ETC. So there's a lot of responsibility on the ETCs. And we believe that you need to build capacity to be able to educate on some of these things. So this is categories A, B, and C for you. And interestingly, you note that C is the tertiary institutions. Under the previous, or the 63, before the amendment, the universities were category C, and they had a different spend. So if you look at the programs that universities do, they are always in millions, but then they had category C, and that was, I think, about 8 million or so. So everything they had to rush to central, and there was so much load for the central. So now the ETCs, they have added the universities as tertiary category C to A and B, and they have the same spend. So it tells you the responsibilities that you have. D has this, and then E, all revised. So now the heads of entities too, they can have some cool relaxation if you can approve works up to 3.3 million. So that way you don't have to go to your ETC as a head. You just tick the box and 3 million, here you go, bingo. For services, 800,000. So your friends in the procurement, in the consultancy space can give you anything 799,000 consultancy. He doesn't have to revert to the ATC. So I think it's good news for everybody. Next. This is also for the municipal metropolitan industrial assembly. So they also have increment in their spend. So if the original can spend 6 million for works, 5 million for goods, that's also fair. I think the industrial assemblies, that is the least spend, is about 3 million for works. So at the district level, they also have some leverage. As we see, they can also spend that amount. And 500,000 for works for the district. The DC himself alone can do 500,000 for works. So small renovations, refurb, he doesn't need to go up. 499, he's there. He doesn't have to go. Okay, so they have also looked at Appendix C, looking at the methods. And ICT, International Competitive Tendering, they are looking at 54 million And here, let's be cautioned. You only do ICT when you don't have local capacity. So you just don't use the amount that everything above 54 million ICT. When you have local, use NCT. But it is the starting point that when you don't have local capacity, you do ICT. So note that people misinterpret and think that once you see that figure, otherwise it will give all opportunities to the foreign contractors. So NCT, the figures are there, and then request for quotation. And I always say that this is where the catch is. The request for quotation now is 1.8 for weeks. Look, what happens is that we always understand, bring 3 invoices, and it's done regularly. So by the time you realize the entity head, the procurement unit has committed you so much, because they just take 3 invoices, and the irony is that they don't even do evaluation reports. They don't do anything. They just look at the invoice and then they give it to the list. The request for quotation is an area that we all have to avert our minds. If you are sitting on an ETC, it may not come to you, but you have to make sure, because it also adds to the spend. So if you have 20 million to spend, and then beneath you they are doing all this monkey business, by the time you realize you don't have a lot to spend from what your thresholds are. And now, okay, restrictive and then single source, always subject to PPA board's approval. So the board, you have to write your justification for approval to be granted. And then you refer to the manual for the use of any of these methods for. Then they are saying for pre-qualification, it's now mandatory that anything above 124 million for works, you need to pre-qualify. You cannot just advertise and get people. You have to pre-qualify first before you proceed. Goods is 100 million and technical service is 50 million. So if you are doing some high-level consultancy assignment and it's over 50 million, pre-qualification first. Okay, we go. Now we look at the review committees. You have dealt with the ETCs. Now the review committees, which my good friend Surveyors Frimpong serves on. Are you around? So we are saying their responsibilities. Review the activities at each step of the procurement cycle, at each step of the cycle, leading to the selection of the lowest bidder offer by the procurement entity in relation to a particular procurement under consideration. So when we say at each step, the procurement cycle starts with the plan, budget. So you are just not going to look at the reports they have come and they went on tender. You are looking at everything that started at each cycle. You review it. Is it in their procurement plan? Is there adequate budget? If they are using this method, restricted tendering, did they go to? So you look at every step. You review everything. And then you grant concrete approval or otherwise. So like I said, not prescriptive, you grant it, or if you have issues, you outline the issues for them to address. Review decisions of the heads of entities in terms of complaints. Then the committee shall furnish the PPA with reports pertaining to its operations in a prescribed format. So if you are on the TRCs, you also make sure that your reports per the PPA format goes as regular as possible. Because the PPA wants to note the issue that you identify, and then it also helps them to shape policy going forward. Strictly observe principles of confidentiality and non-disclosure. We all have friends. I think everybody here is my friend. And I'll be looking at a report and I see DK and Associates being recommended, and somebody at the meeting has a problem with the recommendation and says, this is a problem, I don't think this firm can do this work for reason X, Y, Z, this. And I come and I say, oh, Mr. DK, so Via Steiner was there and he said this against you. So you don't take what happens in the boardroom outside. Much as you have friends, keep it confidential. And then we also always participate in the public procurement forum. So anytime they have this, the review committees are invited. Operational procedures and guidelines for the TRCs. You have to increase the frequency of your meetings to meet the workload at hand. You don't say we are meeting every month. So if you have 100 reports piling, you are waiting for the month. The whole idea of procurement is to make sure that you beat time. So you make sure that, depending on the workload, you schedule meetings to keep up with the workload submissions. And then the mode of correspondence and transmittal of decisions should be prompt. Gone are the days when you do a meeting and then you take 3-4 days to even write one letter to an entity. The more you waste time, the more you are influenced. I learned this some years back. The moment you take a decision and you are supposed to send the decision out, word goes round. Oh, this is what happened. They had an issue. Before you realize you're having calls from higher levels, then you are told, oh, hold on, I've had calls, so it becomes murky. So please, as early as you finish the meeting, you make sure that the procurement people who are supposed to write the letters, get them to get the letters straight. The moment it's released, by the time you are called, so the letter has gone already, so there's little you can do. Use of technical subcommittees on goods and works and then services for the efficient function of the committee. So what is done is that the committees, they look at goods, works and services. So we always have subcommittees. There are some issues that at one sitting you cannot exhaust. You cannot take a decision on. You need people to do further work or further critique. So you have these standing committees for works and services and then for goods, so that at times the committee will refer to the subcommittee to do some detailed work and advice. So this is a way of operation that also helps the work. And then you ensure diplomacy in communicating to heads of entities. Very important. So tell your procurement people who write the letters. It is something that, because you are writing to the head of the entity. The minister is the head of entity, the CEOs. So your wording should be very, 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 very diplomatic. You just don't, for example, you have seen that maybe somebody has done some monkey business. When I say monkey business, he has created some arithmetic error just to favor somebody, and you can clearly see that it is something that is criminal. But you don't write a letter and say that you have done criminal. No, you don't. You have to state it professionally. I recall at the Central Tender Review Committee years back when we introduced some clauses that failure to comply with this, because when we grant approval, we noted that after approval, if it doesn't go the way of the entity at times, they decide that they will not even do the award. So we stated that per section 65, having given the approval, ensure that within 60 days, you notify the person that failure to do so will be a breach of the law. I recalled a certain Minister of Defense had to walk to Finance Ministry and question us why we should instruct them. So you see how people take it. He's a minister, as a soldier man. You are telling that failure to do this will be a breach of the law. He didn't see the need for that. So even if something like this is found offensive by some people, you mind the way you communicate to agency heads. Next. Encourage formal physical interaction with entities in addressing issues of controversy other than writing. So also, let's not be doing writing. There are times that you invite the entities to come and clarify the issues if you are not so clear, because there are issues of contention and you think that you need the technical people to come and then you question them. Then maybe by that you understand it better. But if you decide to write, you can write and write and write. You not get to the bottom of it. Co-op persons with specialized knowledge or expertise. So I think I've thought about this point. If you need to get somebody from outside to help you for a particular procurement decision, you need to do that. Then collect data from review and establish trends and observations for input in drawing up or revising procurement policy by the PPA. So you also don't sit there and you do approvals, you know the issues, you are not bringing up anything to help the professors like Najili to shape policies. Now are you there? Request for original copy of qualification information for recommended tender. So what we also notice is that everything in the evaluation report is what the panel have cited. So they say that the man brought this, yes. But we know that at times some of that information is not actually accurate. So we are saying that anybody or any firm that is being recommended, by all means, cites his qualification information to confirm that the very things that they said he has met, you also cite them and confirm that indeed he submitted them. So for the person being recommended, you make sure that his qualification information is given to you. The tender security is brought, his program of works, any other thing that you have asked for, his experience, the personnel that he was supposed to provide. You said he met all. Let me cite it because I'm approving at the end of the day. It will be very bad if it goes out there that the person who actually was granted approval, he didn't even have what he took. He didn't have the personnel. And then you say, okay, you approved. So what did you cite? He said, oh, I just read in the report. Not good enough. So by all means, make sure that the person recommended, not all of them, but the person who's recommended, his information is made available to the people to take a decision. Inspect procurement plans. And these days, every entity is supposed to load your plans on the PPA website. So by virtue of you being a member, you can easily have access to it. The procurement people should get you the plans. So by all means, look at the plans and see whether the activity that they're asking you to approve is in the plan. And now that we have this committee authorization, it's even more important for you to confirm. Otherwise, you sit down and you approve something that has no commitment. Though we look at the commitment anyway. And we are saying inspect evidence of funding. So the commitment is what is addressing it now. And the good thing about this commitment, I mean, we don't like change. But let me give you the genesis of this thing. So for the past, God knows, maybe over 10 years, anytime you hear the budget being read and they say, for example, they are giving the road agency 300 million, only 30% of that amount goes into direct construction, 70% to repayment of arrears. It has happened over the years because the agencies commit, and then the politicians will go and commit. At times, some roads are given on contract without even the road minister knowing. District level, so it was a murky situation. So anytime they vote the money, they have arrears lined up. So actual money is going to. That's why we had a deficit. So this minister said, okay, now I want to have an oversight of everything. You can't just commit government without me knowing. I'm the finance minister. So this authorization is supposed to, 1, check all these excesses, and 2, ensure that if somebody works, he's paid. Because once I capture it, I know that I have to provide budget for it. So the authorization is supposed to actually sanitize the whole process. Once you have it, it's in the gift system. You work it, they will pay. So nobody can sit anywhere. And now, even if you look at the wording of the amendment, it is also an offense for ETC, for TRC members to approve anything without authorization. It's an offense under the law. So if you are approving and you have not cited it and you say bingo, you have questions to answer one day. Then you also confirm advertisement of the procurement in an acceptable newspaper. Here is where we have the catch. PPA's view is that graphic times are acceptable, but it's not clearly defined. So we have seen stages whereby people advertise in the Catholic Standard, Pioneer, Informer. So how are you going to say that? Because it says it should appear in the newspaper of wide national circulation. So you have to look out for this. But for me, the bottom line is that were there responses? Somebody may have advertised in the Pioneer. He had, let's say, about 8 people competing. You still have competition. You may won, and then so discretion plays very much here. You just don't block or stop a procurement because of some of these things. If you advertise in a Catholic Standard, one person, you can easily throw it away. But you had 8 people, there's still competition. But you can warn them and say, look, next time look for a paper with wider circulation, as the law says. So here you go. And then for restricted and single source procurement, confirmed or via by PPA board. Don't be surprised that somebody can easily, these days of AI and IT, somebody can easily write an approval letter and submit as PPA's approval. Yes. You are laughing easily. It is something that people can do, so you ensure that whatever letter they are provided is also authentic from coming from PPA. And then you look at it, you confirm the minimum period for preparation. The law says that NCT 2 weeks to 6 weeks. So if somebody advertises and it's 1 week notice and then he doesn't have a lot of responses, clearly there's a problem there. ICT is 6 weeks minimum. You can't do 4 weeks for ICT. Because you need a lot of people, the internal board to respond to. Preparation of proposal for service assignment is saying over 4 weeks. So you are looking at a complete assignment, you are giving just 2 weeks. You know that what people do is that they will tell the person they want to win to start, early start. And then they will advertise some short period so that people are not able to put their documentation together properly. So these are the things you look out for when you are sitting on a TRC. Minimum periods. Have you met them? You know, we go. Check consistency of tender opening dates and time. Eligibility of firms offering tenders and compliance to preset evaluation. So the tenders were supposed to have been opened 2 p.m. on 10th. Then it was opened on a different date. The law says the exact date and time. So you don't give a time in your advert or your document and then use a different time without any addendum to notify the people that you have changed the time. So these are things that you see in the review. You have to look at eligibility of firms offering the tenders, your preset criteria, the criteria that they used to evaluate. Are they the same that was set in the document? These are very basic things that you need to check. Confirm consistency of tender opening records with information recorded. Most times, you see that the information that is in the tender opening records signed for are different from what they have used for the evaluation. They said yes, 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 and then they use something to disqualify somebody, which they have taken the yes here. These are practical things that you want to look. And a classic example was this tender where the gentleman at the tender opening had his tender security in his pocket. So the chairman says, Mrs. Chibao and Associates, tender security, the guy couldn't find it. And the people were recording. So they asked the gentleman, any rep here? He says yes. So he comes from the back. Then he pulls the tender security and then he hands over there. So a report comes before the Central Tender Review Committee. And then the man had been evaluated from first stage, second stage. He was the least in price. Then before they went to the post-qualification, they disqualified him and said he brought a late tender security. You see how the storyline goes. So they've evaluated him, and then they had recorded a tender security amount and a source coming from SIC amount in the signed tender record sheet. So how do you disqualify such a person? Report came and then we evaluated and we said, okay, so tender security. Interestingly, they didn't attach the minutes of the tender opening in the report. So you see the essence of some of these documents. The minutes was not there. So I recall at the time, the arguments were two. The lawyers were arguing that anything that is wrong, you cannot make it right. And we of the procurement background were saying that what purpose does the tender security serve? To secure the tender over the validity period. So to the extent that you have held this thing for over 6 months before making a decision, and you have kept the security, whatever time it was submitted, you kept it for the period. So you cannot use that thing as a basis for disqualifying him. Look, this issue traveled to courts at the end of the day. And the agency was so embarrassed because you ask yourself, the principals here, if you are sending people to represent your tender opening, make sure you send the right people. I'm sure the consultant was there, but he couldn't address the issue there because bringing something outside the tender shouldn't have been a deal at all. Let alone ask them to record in the tender record sheet and signed by the panelists. So you see how a small issue now turned tender minutes, a very important document, but it was not there. So the lawyer said they will not admit any tender minutes subsequent to the submission of the report because they can easily go and make good the issue. So it became a whole messy issue. So it's very important for you to understand how these records play out. Inspect signed minutes of tender opening. So when minutes are attached to the, don't just take minutes. They should be signed. Otherwise, you cannot tender them as evidence for any issue. Carry out checks and confirm arithmetic errors, particularly for identified huge corrections with notification and concurrence. So you see the amounts that they have mentioned, and you see the trend, the ranking. By the time they do the arithmetic error, you see that there has been some reshuffling. Somebody with fourth ranking becomes one with some huge arithmetic. You want to be interested, please, by all means, check as ETC member or TRC member. Ensure that grounds for the qualification of tenders are consistent with the tender documents. So the grounds can be very fair, but if it is not a preset, you cannot use. The law under 57 is clear. It can be a very good criteria, but it should be a preset with disclosed criteria in the tender document before you can use it to disqualify people. So anytime you review in a document, ensure that the grounds for taking somebody out sits with the provisions in the document. It cannot be from outside. And then you check that grounds for disqualification. Okay, that's said. Check consistency of technical scoring by various evaluators. This is where it's a big challenge. For services, you see the evaluators who evaluate the technical proposal. Experience. We all know similar experience or relevant experience. So 10 marks, for example, experience 10 marks. You see 7, 8, 7. Somebody who scored 2. He's there to do some business. you cannot say to when the average is 7.8. So clearly, you ask them to go and then rationalize the scores, because ideally, if you are doing services scoring, for example, when you finish, you have to sit and look at how you've each scored and how you can rationalize. Because otherwise, somebody can also come. Everybody has scored 2, 2, 3. Somebody 8. He's there to be a bidding of a particular firm. So you look at these things, and it always happens. You are looking at methodology. I mean, you cannot say we are looking at the same things and then you have a wide variance. You definitely want to address that when you see such things. Next. Ensure that at the time of granting approval, the price offer of the recommended firm is valid. Also here, by the time the documents would have come, all delays, he gave a 90-day validity period. By the time he's bringing the report, it's already passed. So if you grant approval, what is the meaning of that? I mean, at the end of the day, his offer may not be valid. So we always say, confirm validity before you submit it. So by the time you are sending the report even to the TRC for review, you make sure that you ask all the firms to validate their offers before you send. You can't send something that is not valid. And then you confirm compliance of the firm's qualification information to minimum threshold requirements, also very important. Then you confirm that the recommended firm has duly met all tax and social security obligations. Here is where the issue is. The law under 22 clearly says that before you are granted a government contract, your tax and your SNIT should be a must. You can't fail on those things. So what happens is that you see the works under consideration, you see the tax clearance certificates. At times, the whole year, he has paid about 2,000 Ghana cedis. You can tell that the tax considerations are entirely different from what he's going to do. SNIT, you see a very big project and the person has only one staff. So these are things that you want to find out. What is it about? You should be interested as a member of the TRC how these things are playing out, because somebody, that's why at times you come, somebody formed a company 2 months ago and is giving some big projects. You don't understand it. And it helps us because you know what it takes to set up a firm and run for a period. So if somebody just registers a firm for political reasons and then he's given a very huge contract, clearly he's going to mess up. He doesn't have the structures to run. But this is where it starts from. At these levels, we don't keep an eye on that. The person, you see that the company is formed 2005, 2004, 0, 2003, 0, tax 0. Then you come and pay some 2,000, and then he's being given 100 million projects. Clearly, there's a problem here. Then, for submissions on variations, extensions, modifications under Section 87, reasons provided as acceptable with corresponding cost implications. So when you're also receiving variation requests, you make sure that the justification is very clear. And here is where I have a lot of challenge with my own professionals. People write justification for variations and you want to find out whether they are actually one of us. Somebody writes, the president visited my constituency and he said we should do this additional stretch. So even if the president said that, you have to put in the report as a professional. So these are things, and the justification should be consistent with what the actual project is. So you also inspect that and you make very sound judgments on acceptance or otherwise of these justifications. Next. Okay, so I'll quickly touch on Section 87, which is it's something that is eating us up, variations, and those on the TRCs will tell you. I've seen reasons like in the original bill, they didn't provide for electrical and plumbing. I couldn't believe it the first day I saw it. They did the original contracts and they forgot to provide for plumbing and electricals. So the variation, they were now providing for it. So you can tell that the preparation is everything. If at the onset of the packaging, somebody had looked at all these issues, they would have asked the questions. And I don't know why PP has still not done this. Some of us have heard the view that for some thresholds, the ETCs should be able to inspect and clear the tender document like we have the no objection for the donor funded project. Because you are doing the project at the district level, it's hundreds of millions. Now we have a structure where they are going to the region directly. If you don't have somebody with firm capacity to do the project, all the deficiencies, you carry it along to the point that you are going to award, and it becomes a problem. So the people preparing the documents from the base document should be as good as the desires of the procurement entity. Yesterday, for example, I was following up a job, and I was directed to use the GANEP system. So I asked my staff to go to the GANEP system. Expression of interests, and they are asking for validity period. I was wondering who prepared the document, and I just did my checks. He said the person there doesn't, but this is somebody who is putting out a tender. So if the tender is defective, deficient, it will flow to the point of award, and implementation becomes a problem. So the people preparing the things should themselves understand. That's why we have a lot of variations. So when they come, the reasons are such that, especially the road agencies, apologies. But most of the reasons, madam, most of the reasons are, we started with a line diagram. Even if you have done a line diagram over the years, you should know how it ended. The trends should tell you. But the line diagram will be the main thing why they are coming for variations. And because the law also, I see it as maybe a loophole. The law has no capping on variations. So you can vary up to 1,000% as long as you have justification for. But if you are using the donor system, after 15%, repackage as a new project. So people sit up. You know that when you exceed 15%, you can't vary beyond that. So when people are working on donor funded projects, they are more meticulous. So you ask yourself, why are we doing this to ourselves? Because you can vary, and you're adding this, you're adding that, and because it gets to a point that you cannot say much because they are already committed. They are at a point you cannot say stop the work. So it keeps on happening. So please, we are professionals. Now that we are on ATCs, let's bring our expertise to bear. Next. Okay, so we are saying that if the law says that beyond 10% of the original contract go to a review body for approval, and if the original contract was not even approved by that review body, for example, it was not at central level, it is level, but the variation amount brings it to the threshold of the regional or central, you have to go to the central. That's what 87 says. Next. Then submission requirements under 87. So if you are submitting for a variation, these are the things that the review committees will look out for. Submit prior to execution the variation or immediately after the execution for unavoidable variations. So you just don't wait for 3 months and they come and say you are submitting this thing. The moment it occurs, or before, in fact, ideally before it occurs, you package and then you send with reasons for approval. But if it's an unavoidable variation, immediately after you send. For example, you are working on a rig somewhere, you know the idle time for rigs so much in millions. So you cannot say you are going through a process, but immediately after that, you submit and you seek your approval. Outline the reasons for the variations, state the corresponding cost to each reason. Here is for clarity. You have various reasons why you are incurring the variation. Don't put all together. It becomes very difficult for the approving authority to now look at what this amounted to. So if you say you change this for this reason, what is the effect? So let's segregate that and then get it very clear for them. Then confirm issuance of instructions. This is where the challenge is, especially those of us who have experience with the district assemblies. The DC can come and create, so he will come and instruct. The chiefs will come and then they will instruct. If you have a contractor who doesn't understand what is going on, he will, DC can tell me, say, then conflicting instructions. So the project manager will tell you always one line. We don't have a recognized person who all instructions to go through. So we want to cite that. And then you submit evaluation of the variation consistent with the contract conditions. So you cannot just use any rates for your variation. It has to be consistent with the contract conditions. If your variations, for example, the contract conditions say use maybe the statistical service, and then you are submitting something, use something different from what the contract provides, definitely we would have issues with that. Provide information on progress status of the original contract, physical and payment. People submit variations and then they forget about the original contract itself. But I want to relate your variation to the original contract. What is the progress of the original? I give you an original project to do. You are some percentage through. Let me know the progress. Let me know how much you have even paid for. At times, you see the original contract, he has done 80% physical, he has been paid 20%, there's no money, he's struggling already, and you're adding more. So these are the kind of questions that you want to look at. Provide evidence of approval of funding for additional works. So by all means, and it's good that the committee authorization is in place now. Even if you are doing a variation, you need to go for authorization. The minister wants to see where every person is going, so that I can provide for and find budget for. Next. And then attach a copy of the contract document of the original. So you can't bring a variation without giving me the original contract document. Everything comes from that. So I have to cite the original contract document, and then submit also copy of fluctuation indices for requests with fluctuation computations. So if you have done your computations, don't assume that I should understand that you are paying fluctuations of this amount. I want to also go to the computations, and most invariably what happens is that the computations are wrong. Most times people do not apply themselves to the use of the formula. So what they do is that the indices are published every month. So he's looking at a computation of the variation. So between the last time he did the evaluation, let's say in January, he did it in June, then he'll come and use the June index as the current index and compute. So in effect, what you're telling me is that you did all the work in June. No, I did some in February, March, April, May. At best, you average the indices and get the applicable indices. But so you realize that they are overpaying the contractors. So we want to see, also confirm that indeed the fluctuation is paying is actually due the contractor. You just don't sit, and if you don't go for meetings as a QS, the other people will pass it anyway over your head. Submit benchmark unit rates for works items that are not in the original contract. So you are varying and you don't have those items in the original contract. So how did they come by the rates? They need to submit those things for you to also verify and confirm whether they are fair and reasonable for the project. Next. So the next is question time. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for him one more time. This has been an insightful lecture, and it's time for us to, I won't say Q&A, but it's going to be a discussion. And this is supposed to be moderated by QS Vice Chair, Surveyor Professor Gabriel Nani. Chair and CPD. QS Chair, CPD Chair, kindly take your seat upstage again. Vice, please take your seat upstage. Then before we do the discussion, permit me to do some few acknowledgements. We have in our midst the Honorary Secretary of this noble institution in the person of Surveyor Beatrice Kom. Also in our midst is Surveyor Sarah Zida, CEO GHIS. We also have Surveyor Yulan. Kindly rise, yeah. The CEO and ordinary chair. Yeah. See how beautiful they are looking. Yeah. We have Surveyor, I saw Yulan, yes. Surveyor Yulan Esiedu, QS Treasurer and Chair of Finance Subcommittee. We also have in our midst Surveyor DK Chair, is the past president, and he was the first person that wrote the GHIS exams, Surveyors exams. Put your hands together for him again. We also have one of our senior members here, Surveyor Nico Annan. We acknowledge your presence. Surveyor George Hagan, we acknowledge your presence. Surveyor Dr. Na Ajele Asiboido Mekpo, past CPD chair and currently an advisor to the CPD committee. You're also welcome. Surveyor Samuel Nketia, Bono East Ahafo Regional Rep, is also in our midst. Surveyor Philip Aine, Upper East Regional Chair, Rep. Surveyor Samuel Ochre, Editorial, Publication and Library Subcommittee Chair. Then Surveyor Emmanuel N.M. Mate, QSYSM Coordinator. Also in our midst this afternoon is Surveyor Ian Agbedega, the Secretary for the QS Division. So I hand over to Surveyor Prof to take us through the discussion. It's about some 15 to 20 minutes discussion.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm told 15 to 20 minutes discussion. I'm wondering whether that's enough. All right. So we'll try to remain within that. And my assignment is very straightforward. It's discussions. Maybe there'll be some questions. And I must admit that we have a very highly knowledgeable facilitator that has taken us through all this. And good, we are clapping for him. We appreciate. But each and every one of us actually experienced what was happening on these boards and entities. So we'll bring that to bear on the discussion. So straight away, we'll pick 3 questions at a time, and then we'll discuss them, or 3 comments at a time, discuss them, and then we move forward. So can we have the first 3? Can we have the first 3? Okay, Surveyor, Kingsley, Indru, Gonzalez, and then, okay, so 1, 2, 3. So we start from there. Do we have another? All right, Surveyor Kingsley. So you introduce yourself, then you go ahead.
Okay, I'm Kingsley Nro, a member of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, and I want to touch on the tender opening and the recording and that, I mean, the one that Dr. Surveyor Ajumadu mentioned. Currently with the GANEPS, we are no longer doing manual opening. We don't have physical interaction with any tenderer. So basically what happens is that the system itself will shut down in terms of submission. After, say, 10 a.m., if you're a bidder, you can't submit. If that is the time for the submission, you can't submit. Then the system itself will generate a tender opening report for you. So it's not an issue of tender opening people now marking and saying that, yes, this one submitted this didn't submit that. So I think as ETC members or TRC members, what we will need to do is that at the meetings, you have to request the procurement people to, take you through GANEPS in terms of the submission, how it was done on the day, how they did the evaluation on the system. They might have provided you the report, but in terms of how they did it, because now everything is done on the system, it's mandatory that you do everything on the system. So you need to go through how you did the whole thing on the system. Then if you have issues, then, as an ETC member, you can raise, those issues. But I just want to say that currently, those issues of somebody submitting bid security or giving it out there at the place and also taking off, things which are not existent, it doesn't happen anymore. So I think we will have to take note of that as ETC members, so that when we are at ETC, we will ask the procurement guys that, look, open the Ghana system, show me how you did everything. You check for eligibility, you check for technical certification, you check for financial, whatever. Do post qualifications, everything on the system. So you have to check for all these, let them take you through. Then if you have questions, then you ask those questions. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. So let's pick the second one.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Yvette Sintin. I work with Skull Consult, and I'm also the ETC on the ETC of the Lands Commission. So thank you, Surveyor Ajumadu, for this presentation. I believe it will help us to do our work better. My question relates to, the level of scrutiny. What you've explained now requires that, there's a lot of referencing, and the review has to be so thorough just to meet the level of performance required from each of the ETC or TRC members. Is it possible to have member firms rather sit on these boards rather than, say, individuals? And my reason is, it appears that there's a lot of background information that the individual needs to have. And to ensure that proper diligence is done at each of the stages, it might need more resources, and the question is, I know this also relates to what the Act says, meaning that there are some professionals who should be on there. But in terms of the composition, is it specific to individuals, or can there be consideration for member firms to rather sit on ETCs or TRCs rather than a person? That's my question.
All right, thank you very much. Let's take the third one.
Thank you, Surveyor. I think that you really enlightened us. One thing I will not mention, sorry, I'm Surveyor Bernard Cosmos Gonzalez. I will not mention the entity because of what I'm going to say. I think that one thing that is happening is that my experience is that, for instance, the procurement plan, it comes and there's so much error in it. Now, when you are trying to correct it, it looks as if you are policing them. And usually, it comes, the meeting is called when there's a pressure. Maybe there's time that if they don't assess the budget, that means that it would run over. So it comes like a pressure, and whilst you are trying to correct, which they need to go back, work on it and bring it back, then it looks as if you are policing. I don't know how would handle that level of communication, because obviously, yes, you want the right thing to be done. At the same time, you don't also want it to look and sound like, oh no, no, we are not approving it. Go back and work on it and bring it again. Whereby they have a time limit also as well. I just wanted to relate and see how we can work around this. Thank you.
All right, so the three questions, one is on GANEPS, one is on the level of detail of scrutiny, and then the third one is on the policing issue. So,
all right, thank you very much. GANEPS. Kisley, you bear with me that the GANEPS is not 100% rolled out. People are still using the other side. So, but you see, what the GANEPS does is that what you put in is what you get. So you should be interested in what the requirements are. For example, if you say tender security 2%, if somebody makes an error of 20 pesos, it takes you out. So that human judgment element is something that becomes a problem. So the ones that come on GANEPS, I understand that you may not need all these sheets. But if you're on the ETC and you're using a GANEPS system, also bring to bear your sound judgment on issues. The GANEPS system, look, when you look at a typical report generated by GANEPS, the little things, because when they put in requirements that are unreasonable, it just takes out a lot of people. There are times that nobody's even coming out as responsive. You may need to now go back and then see how you look at some of the requirements and adjust. So much as the GANEPS system is supposed to support us, always let's make sure that our sound judgment comes to play in terms of how the GANEPS supports us. So let's look at that. And then the member representation. Well, it's interesting. We are dealing with the law, and the law says it's a person. So, but I think I appreciate where you're coming from. If you're a member, apply yourself to the task. At best, you can ask some of your office people to support you. When you get a report, let them also look at some aspects for you, just to give you that back support. But for representation, unfortunately, the law says that a member, and the letter you are giving is a member. We cannot take a firm there because it also has a whole confidentiality issue. You understand? So let's also look at that. And then this issue of procurement plan, my brother, I'm telling you that be a police rather than have problems going forward. You see, how they operate, the procurement people, I don't know that, but how they operate is very, very, very serious. I, for one, if I am leaving the office and you bring something to sign, I'll not sign. Anything done on agency can be a problem. So they wait until the time that they think that this thing has to be done, and then they quickly call an emergency meeting. Look, I recall some ministries, the ATCs never sat. They say, oh, the minister has traveled. So he will come and say, okay, we are clearing everything. You can have about 30 reports, and then they will use one meeting, 2 hours, to clear everything. They will have problems by all means. So you just by all means be a police. Let them know that this X, Y, Z, even if you have to give conditional approval, let it be submitted later for you to confirm that the right thing is done. Otherwise, on agency ticket, and then if it happens once, confirm that next time they give you 2 weeks minimum notice. That's what the law says. You see, I think that anytime you go for the first meeting, assert yourself. Let them know that this is where you understand what the law provides for, and this is how you are going to work. I think some people will share experience with you how they have asserted themselves, and without them, nobody can have a meeting. The ETC head knows that, look, if this man is not there, I can't have a meeting, because you let them know that this is what it is, and I'll not take X, Y, Z. I'm sure, but otherwise, if you just listen to the typical public servant or civil servant agency thing, you would never get anything done rightly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Surveyor Vice President, I heard you during the presentation indicating that a review committee is able to form subcommittees to look at some of the, if they need to, and they can also co-opt members in there. So I think if it's extensive and one person cannot do it on the panel, probably to be okay for them to set up, to form a subcommittee and probably co-opt few more people to support the individual. All right. Then the second thing, based on Surveyor Andrew's question, has the GANEPS linked, let's say, task clearance certificate and sneak clearance certificate to the system that they have at GRA and etc.?
I think that's something that we have discussed at length. I'm not too sure now whether they have done it, but it's something that in all their presentations, we've been told that they are considering linking those, so that it's not a matter of somebody submitting something that is unauthentic or something. But I don't know, because I left there, I think around, that was 7 months ago. So I'm not too sure whether they're working on it. Okay, I was just going to add to what you mentioned about the workload. So one of the things that the review committees do, which you should all insist on, is that for especially variations, always, if you doubt, pay a visit to the site. Because you are approving variations of millions of Ghana cedis, and you sit there and at times in your head you can appreciate that. Look, how can you have this volume of earthworks, you want to see it yourself. And at times when you go to the site, you see that, look, really this is what actually happened. Otherwise, what they are relaying to you from the site and what you are looking at, there's a disconnect. The day I drove on the Atonsu Continency Road, then I appreciated the extent of work. The road is about, is it 9 meters here? Look, very wide road. And if you look at the fill, some of the sections, if you look at the fill material, when it is brought before you, you appreciate the extent of work that they are doing. Otherwise, sitting, you cannot appreciate it. And it all relates to the workload. How do you conjecture how these volumes are generated? It is very, very, very important. I'll share a quick example with you. An agency brought a request before CTRC years back, and that was to do with decommissioning of some refuse dump at Teshi. And if you look at the volumes, and millions of cedis. So we said, and this was a single source procurement. So we just asked simple questions. Give us the drawings, because obviously you can't just determine the volume. So the contours that gave you this volume. They took 6 months to go to ASL for them to now go. So they generated out of no designs. And when they finished, the volumes had, I think about half of the volumes were just wiped off. So you sit there and then just approve something like this. Million somebody goes to tell, and then when there are issues, they will ask you, on what basis do you approve these huge volumes? So you do the things that will protect you in future when you ask questions. So if you are not too sure, by all means confirm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll take the next three, but I notice we don't have time on our side. So if you're coming to ask a question or make a comment, just go straight to the summary. So the next three. Yes, Surveyor Dr. Fetono.
I have the mic,
and then
thank you.
Is the first one. Then Surveyor Sam. And then third person.
We also have hands up.
Online. How many online? Two online. Okay, so we take these two plus the two online as a next set. Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, thank you for introducing me, Vice Chair. For this a really brilliant presentation, and I'm grateful. I want to congratulate you again. I want to touch on the value you mentioned, that we should show value for ourselves. In fact, that's very, very important. I'm a member of some of the committees, and the explanations you give to them, etc., they will see the value in you to the extent that they organize a workshop outside in a hotel for me to be a resource person for them. So we need to show value, that we have authority of the subject and will respect us. Now, there's one trick which is going on, which I want to touch on, the issue of fluctuations, which you mentioned. When the fluctuations come to us, let's look at it critically. What they do is that if they realize that the indices are declining and there's an outstanding fluctuation to be paid, they don't pay the fluctuations again. But when they pay, it becomes negative. And this is an issue they are hiding, that we as this tender board, etc. members, we should look at it and save the purse of the Ghana. Then in terms of Ministry of Roads and Highways, in fact, it was really terrible, 1,000% increase, etc. But right now, I think the Ministry of Finance is trying to put a break where without warrants, they cannot award a project. And the warrants, too, they have administrative directives which is embodied in the tender, where you cannot exceed the contingency in terms of variation and fluctuations. In unlikely event you want to exceed, you have to go for another warrant. So I think this is giving a break in that aspect. That is brief. I think I'm brief. Thank you.
It's fine. Thank you. All right. So Surveyor Sam Ochre.
Thank you very much, Vice President. On the tender review committee that I've had a chance to work with, there's an interesting observation we've been making, and we've been talking with other representatives. It appears there's a lot of capacity building that is needed. And whilst we are doing this, I'm wondering at which point will we think about extending this training to the people who present these things at the entity tender committees? Because it's quite surprising when you engage them, they present, and you ask some questions and they are so lost. Where my concern comes in was, in the presentation, it was mentioned that we can only refer, we cannot prescribe things to them. I've seen two extremes whereby tenders were submitted, the cost, the rates were so high. We reviewed and told them that it was too expensive. They came back, there was a savings of about 5 million cedis. Then another tender group came, and it was so low. I told the committee that they can't do this work. Looking at the specification, they were like, if they said they would do it at this cost, let's award. And they awarded. Months later, I encountered one colleague who had been transferred to that district. And he told me that the contractors are struggling. At which point can we find the real value? Are we just to talk when it's too expensive? When it's too low, what do we do to them? And how is GHI going to extend this kind of training to the professionals or the seeming professionals who are presenting these things? Now, the other question too is, when tenders are done at GANEPS, you find them bringing just one tenderer. When you question them, they tell you that it was advertised, but the contractors are not too conversant with the GANEPS system. So they get just one person, always one person, most of the time. Are we attracting the contractors to get into this space so that we can also get value for money in these tenders that happen in the district and municipal assemblies? That's my comment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We go online. Sylvia Mate.
All right, so online we have a question from Professor Theophilus Ejekumi. He's asking, please, when will the TRC be logged into the GANEPS? And it's also asking, verification of information received from bidders is very difficult to undertake. Digital linkages to certification agencies will be spot on. So this is from Professor Theophilus Ejekumi.
All right, let's take the next one. I'm told there are two comments online.
Yes. So there's another one too from Professor Theophilus Ejekumi. He's asking, if an extremely defective tender document gets to your decks at the TRC, do we just accept it, assume it to be okay, and just concur? Can the TD be rejected outright?
Okay, that's from the same person.
Yes.
Is there another person? Oh, All right, while he's looking for that, let's deal with this for these three people. So the first one has to do with stamping our professionalism from the word go and the declining fluctuation that we don't consider. Then the other one is a training issue. When to train the other members of the committee. And then also has to do with what GANEPS. GANEPS, that's a submission of tenders on GANEPS. People are not conversant with it. And then Prof. J. Kumi's comment has to do with a defective report, whether it can be rejected or defective tender document. Extremely defective tender document. When does it get to the review tender review committee? So that's from him. And then there was one more from him.
There's another one from him. He says, arithmetic corrections I counted were awful, very awful. We wonder if indeed some significant numbers of KOSs in the MMDAs are helping our cause. Corrections of priced BOKs is not just arithmetic, as the name denotes. I encountered issues that are beyond professional discussions. Let us get serious about all the aspects of our work as KOS.
All right. And then the one more point from here about when the review committees can prescribe.
All right, thank you very much. Interesting issues. So, TRC's being linked to GANEP's ongoing process. I wish somebody from PPA could confirm that, but I know it's ongoing. And also the digital linkages of the statutory certificates, how to verify them. Previously, we always wrote to the agencies. We had an arrangement with them before GANEPS came. We write to them, so all the people who have been recommended, we take their SNET tags and write to the agencies. We had some contact persons. Quickly, they will just bring to us, and at times you'll be surprised that some known firms would have submitted fictitious certificates. So I'm sure if the linkages are done, we would address this issue completely. Then the tender documents, rejection or otherwise. I can tell authority that at Central, we have rejected some projects that have come with defective because the tender documents cannot address the issues at all. When we're doing this digital address system, we rejected the first one for them to start again because the document that they were using, technical service and the kind of report that they brought to us, they were two different things. So we said, look, you cannot proceed on this because the basis for even selecting them was questionable. So we threw it out and advised that they relaunch the tender using the appropriate documents. So if it is that clear, because you are looking at value, so you cannot achieve value if you have a defective document. Then the issue of training, I'll leave for the chair too, because he will tell us the way forward from the divisional point of view. And the GANEP's low response, I think it's a big challenge. It tells us the level of capacity that we have built as a people. Our industry is an industry that people enters easily. Anybody who thinks he has some money and can have some linkages to get a contract becomes a contractor, and they don't follow any issues of capacity building. So for him to even employ somebody to even learn the GANEPs and submit tenders, they find it difficult. So this is happening, but then for me, it points to the fact that you are getting a single offer. So you need to do your value for money check on it. It's like single source, more or less. So you have only one firm, just do your value for money check. And then I'm sure when we continue to do that, people will now see that there's a need for them to rule on the GANEPs. Otherwise, we can never get it started. Which other issue? Arithmetic corrections. I think I mentioned it. At times you ask yourselves, why would somebody trained and practice for years? I mean, you can tell straight away that. And mind you, I think there's something that people are missing. When you go for evaluation, you always make sure that the original copies are kept with the client. You have no right to work with original copies. It is the copies that the evaluation committee has access to, so that I can always compare to the original copies. It is because the clients don't know their responsibilities, so they leave everything for the, so the people have the original and play around with, they will change and change. But with experience, you can tell that this figure jumping from here to here, it's something that you can never defend. At times when we want to go into it, people will end up in the hands of the police. We have had issues where I remember my chief director at the time said, the police arrest this man. I say, chief, go easy. Because you can tell that he has cooked the whole thing. And at times they don't cook it well. So you can have traces.
Excellent.
So it is bad enough. But much as we are talking about doing the right thing, we should also educate ourselves that wherever we take our people there, they should make sure that they also do the right thing. They shouldn't be in bed. After the procurement people, they can do anything, but don't be in bed with them, and make sure that you espouse professionalism in your delivery. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I have two more people online.
Hello.
Okay, Surveyor PP.
Hello.
Training.
Hello.
All right, so Surveyor PP, and then.
Hello.
Okay, I've gotten 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Plus a 2 online. So we're taking 5 at a go, but that should be very short. 30 seconds.
Thank you. In fact, I've had some awful experience. You know me as an examiner. Some of the things that have come before us, and you wonder, those areas do have quantity surveyors and their staff. Some of them come and they present the report and ask them, are you quantity surveyors? And they say yes. And I get alarmed. As the professor said, some of the things you have to reject entirely because the way and manner they prepare the contract document. You ask them, were you trained in Kumasi, KNUST? Because I get surprised. Secondly, I think some of the things are borders on integrity. A lot of things have come to us, and not only from one institution, all of them. I realize that the tenders are always 3 in number. And it's A, B, C. Tender number 1, A, he will have the lowest figure, and all the requirements, he will get them right. B and C, they will have all the requirements not right. So automatically A wins. You go to contract B, then B, contractor B, the same person who failed to produce those things for contract A doesn't bring them. And there he gets he brings the lowest tender, and the others also don't bring. And it's not only from one institution. So I was asking myself, do you belong to a club? Because it's getting surprising. So I think this kind of thing, there must be something serious about it that we have to take note. The training aspect, I think it should be done because it comes from our own people who are working on the field. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Abdul Razak Baton. I would be brief as much as possible, please. I think on the issue of the cap on the variations, under Regulation 73 of the PFM regulations, you would see that beyond 15%, you need to go for a new commitment. If you have a very good auditor, he would bully you in case you say that is not there. Then also on fluctuations computations, members on ETCs and CTRs review committees ought to see that when mobilizations are paid, people will refuse to deduct it before computing the fluctuations. And when the numbers are high, believe you me, it can be very significant. One of the things I observe as practitioner meeting committees has also been a situation where members of the GHIS are not also aware that since 2020, the PPA has introduced new standard tender documents that must be used. So whether you are using small works, medium works, or large works, which align with the new thresholds, if you want to put it so, it ought to be known that there are standard documents that must be used. And my case was an example of evaluation report. Everybody on the ETC and review committee said this is a new format. They haven't seen it before. They are not familiar with it. But this is the standard evaluation report for works as published by the PPA since 2020. So it gave us a bit of a banter, and this is an authoritative body. I'm there to seek approval. So you mellow and you go away. If not, some of our members too, the comments you receive when you meet them, you purely ignorant position, if I may put it. Because if you are not aware that there is a new standard evaluation report for works on the PPA website, then of course, when I use it, you don't tell me that that is wrong and you are not familiar with it. On the issue of very low rates, I have encountered a situation. Unfortunately, Section 64 gives us an opinion when you have a very high budget beyond, when the lowest evaluated tender's bid is far more than your budget. It says investigate, cancel the tender, or you go for negotiation. But unfortunately, it didn't give us that when it is very low. And this thing about plus or minus 10%, I keep saying maybe it's not going to work. However, the World Bank says when you confer from the tenderer and you realize that the rates have been justified adequately, increase the value of your performance bond. If it was 30%, make it 50%, so that you mitigate the risks that comes to the entity. That is after you've done your necessary checks and the contractor has been able to justify why he's quoting 800 Ghana cedis for a 30 C concrete. So that we would have to look for. On the issue of GANEPS and...
Sophia Razak will have 1 more minute or 30 more seconds.
It's 1 more minute.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Salim Sedo Brahma. I'm with GNPC. Sophia Razak took my first point, so I won't even belabor it. It's on Regulation 73.1, which is quite clear that for an expenditure goes beyond 15%, it should be seen as a new commitment. If we do not look at it from the PPA's perspective, but the auditors have started picking it up. And when we have gone in as TRC members and have cleared it, but the auditors come and during their annual audits, they pick it up and they cite the institutions for breach. So I think we should take note of it. My second point, again, is on capacity building. 2 days ago, I was in a meeting in the midst of people who belong to the SIPS fraternity. And you can clearly see that they see quantity surveyors as a threat to them as far as the profession is concerned. There's very little they can actually do about it because our training places us superior to them in terms of understanding and practice. However, sadly, if you go into any of the laws and there's supposed to be the appointment of a member to serve or play a role of a procurement practitioner, the first point is typically always looking towards SIPS rather than us. And it is something we should work on. I have found myself in GNPC and I'm sitting on top of a team that is largely SIPS professionals. Fortunately, aside being a GHIS member and an RICS member, I'm also a SIPS member, and that probably gave me that advantage. And you can clearly see the difference in understanding when it comes to what we know, how we understand and interpret the whole issue of procurement and contract administration as compared to what they do. But it looks like we are still not blowing our trumpet. We are still not packaging and putting ourselves there to be the first point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll take 2 from online, and that should be it. Surveyor Michael Frimpong is online.
Yes,
he can make his comment.
Thank you. So mine is just a contribution. Is it possible for us to kind of have some advocacy where we will advise the head of entities to the extent that approving works for 54 million Ghana cedis, which is $5 million, is a lot of money. People go to prison for $200,000, etc. So we should find a way where we advise such people that even although, especially those who don't have quantity on their ETCs, they should try and send the document for concurrent approval at CTRC, whether it is just to get a confirmation, because $5 million is a lot of money. So we need to find a way especially where we are not sitting on the ETC, to advise the chair of the entity so that they will look into such matters. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That's the live president of AQS. Surveyor Andrew Shea. Surveyor Dr. Andrew Shea.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Mine have to do
Good
with
afternoon.
some of the entity tender committees. Sometimes they have brought in documents, especially from Get Fund. They tell you that they send, before they bring it to you, they send these evaluation reports to Get Fund for a no objection policy or rule. When they get the no objection, then they come to the TRCs and they think that even where there are errors in their bids, they cannot change the tender figures, the approved figures from Get Fund. Is that right? Because we insist that we are the concurrent approval body, and what we say should be much more than what the Get Fund, who are the sponsors of the project, say. And obviously, where the Get Fund gives the concurrent, the no objection, and there are errors in the documents, particularly the bids, is that something that we can accept? And what is the implications for us? Then, secondly, about the tax and Senate, where you have a company that has submitted a tax clearance, it is cleared, and from GRA you see it is genuine. But looking at the size of the company and the amount that they are paying, or the Senate, and you see the number of workers, you genuinely will see that they do not match. They do not match. But these are genuine from tax and Senate. What can we do? Can we reject those licenses, those clearances from GRA or from Senate, even though they are valid? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Surveyor Andrew Shea. So 5 questions. I think 2 of them are just additional comments for us to pick, which we've really gotten from Surveyor Razak and Salim. Yes. And then Surveyor PP has to do with a bit of cover pricing. And then Surveyor Frimpong talk about advocacy because of the thresholds now. And then the last point, I'm sure Surveyor Vice President has picked it. So we can quickly respond to that within 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I think for the comment, we will note them. I'll touch on the TRC's issue. And why he has to notice that when I was defining the TRC's responsibility, I said it's an independent body. You are supposed to work independently. So whether the Get Fund has approved, you are looking at the document before you. You have a responsibility to keep, and you've been given a document to concur. So if you find issues, raise them for them to address. It has nothing to do with what the funding agency has approved. We have even had this issue with PPA. People think that if PPA approves a firm for them to tender on a restricted basis, you cannot raise an issue. If you are working independently, they have cleared them that they have capacity to do it. But if you find an issue with any of the firms, you are doing an independent review, you can raise it. The same way the Senate issues and what have you, you are looking at, let's say, $100 million project, and you have made requirement of personnel, you have made requirement of some other resources. If a person comes and he's fielded, let's say, 10 personnel as personnel from his outfit, and he's paying Senate for 1, you can raise it for them to clarify. So once you are doing an independent function and you are concurring to what they're asking you to concur to, you can raise an issue to be clear in your head before you say, okay, bingo, go. Because the moment you clear and you approve, when there are issues, entities, they don't talk. Oh, we had a problem from CTRC. Oh, we had a problem from this. So it's for you to now go. And the number of times I have been to Yoko, for example, during my 18 years of work, every time government change, I spend a lot of time with Yoko and the other agencies. And when you go, the question they will ask you, they are not expecting that somebody else did this, so you are resolved from or absorbed from this particular responsibility. So please, work independently. You know what your terms of reference are as members of a TRC. You have received this thing, you think there's a problem with it, ask them to. It has nothing to do with what the Get Fund is saying. They are doing their own things. You are also doing performing your function. I think that is fair. Which other issue? Yes, there was one issue I wanted to touch on. I think at the core of all the discussions we have had is capacity building. We all know how people even make it on the TRCs and the ETCs. We just appoint favorites, people without any expertise, because it is business as usual. They bring people to their boards and what have you. And so for me, I always say that when you find yourself there, make a difference. Let them see that this person is the person we can rely on. And I've had references from some of our people on ETCs. The agency heads will say that if they are not there, there's no meeting. It tells a lot. So it's how you assert yourself, the arguments you make, and you tell them the implications of these actions that they are taking. I recall once upon a time, there was a project that we had to take a decision on. And I made an observation, and my boss, my chairman then said, hey, this thing, we have to let it go. I said, Chair, I think this is the issue. Technically, we cannot do it. So I said, no. Okay, I said, okay. So the moment they said approved, I raised my hand and said, okay, as a technical advisor, I want it to reflect in the minutes that I objected to this on this grounds, so that in future I'll be absolved. So when I mentioned, everybody kept quiet. Minutes captured it. Next morning, 6 a.m., I was awakened by my boss. So, oh, yesterday the thing you were saying, now ask the members, I think you're right, so we'll reverse the decision and then we'll do the right thing. Because I made a caveat that I wanted to reflect that this is my opinion, so that in future because I knew clearly that this thing could not hold. So look, don't be intimidated by the numbers, by the appointments. Be a professional as you are, and I'm sure to stand the test of time. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Surveyor Vice President. There's one person, I think he wanted to talk, but then it came late. But I'm sure he'll put it on our platform. That's our surveyor, Surveyor Dazi. Surveyor contractor. But then he came late. These two people have put me in a very tight corner. Okay. 10 seconds.
In all these deliberations, I think what we've come to realize is that we must also apprise ourselves with current happenings. For instance, what one surveyor Razak said is about documents on PPA. I mean, most of us do not read the documents there, and sometimes we find ourselves wanting. And then also, I would want to bring this up, that where new members are put onto TRCs, if there could be that opportunity of some training or short refresher courses for even all members, that would be very good for us. Because today's lecture has been very, very good, and I'm sure most of us have got to know things that we didn't know. So that was all that I wanted to add.
All right, thank you very much. And another very short one from another very senior surveyor, Surveyor Nikwanen. I'm sure he promised he'll do 10 seconds.
Yes. Thank you very much for the very excellent presentation, Ajman. Have we been consulted on the VFM bill and how that dovetails into the work of the TRCs and the ETCs? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I know for most of the issues, they've been picked up in the minutes, and Surveyor Chair has also picked up what we have to do at ESCO and as a divisional committee. So none of your comments, whether addressed directly by Surveyor Vice President or not, has just gone without attention. So, on this note, I want to thank you very much for the cooperation. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. To the VFM issue, I think we need to applaud the leadership of the GHIS for the role they played in getting GHIS on that board. I think we were at Tema when I chanced upon the draft bill, so I alerted IPP, and then we just realized that they were going to pass that without the engineers and surveyors on the board. So quickly at Tema, the president took a decision for us to write. We had to lobby at Parliament, and within 24 hours, we got our names there on the board. But for the records, this is a personal opinion. There's inherent provision under the PPA law to address value for money. If government actually wanted any focus on value for money, they could have expanded on that. But this is a parallel thing that they have set up with a board, with a CEO, with a deputy CEO, with all the committees in place to come and do VFM for single source procurement, so to speak. So for me, I think they should have done some studies to confirm that funding this structure and the achievement they will have from value for money, is it something that they've really studied to confirm that it will be? But hey, here we are. It shall be, or it has been passed already. We are going to live with it. So we have to now look at the opportunities that are bound for us. There's a value for money certificate that you need to do. There are a lot of things that, as quant surveyors, we should be preparing ourselves to take opportunity and deliver service on that. So please, I think the next time we may have to also go through that, and then we all think through the opportunities and how best we place ourselves to take advantage. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And once again, I want to thank you for your cooperation. But I have just one appeal, that on our platforms, especially the WhatsApp platform, let's continue discussing these things. I really appreciate the happy birthday messages I had recently. They were so nice, but then let's continue discussing our professional issues as well. Thank you.
Yeah, get it up for him. Thank you very much, QS Vice Chair, Prof. So before we move to the next item on the program, permit me to do just these few acknowledgements. We want to acknowledge the presence of Surveyor Ken Wanda Chinyo, Volta Oti Regional Rep. Wanda, let's see you. Surveyor Dr. Charles Apetonu, one of our senior members. Put your hands together for him. Surveyor Charles Loco, Divisional Committee member. Surveyor Alex Bafo, Divisional Committee member. Let's see you. Members have to know they are Divisional Committee members who are here. Thank you. Surveyor John Dazi, Divisional Committee member. Also in our main Surveyor Yvette Awosin team, CPD Vice Chair. Put your hands together for her. Surveyor Morris Awodi, LOC, yet to be inaugurated LOC Chair. You know, this year we are going to Tamale. The LOC Chair is in our midst. Then also we want to acknowledge some dignitaries on the call. We have on the call Surveyor Professor Nana Theophilus Ajay-Kumi, Chair Strategic Planning Development Subcommittee, Surveyor Dr. Ivy Ebu, KNUST, Surveyor Godwill Bayamwa, Immediate Parts YSN Coordinator, Surveyor James Jimayewa, Past ESCO member and GC member, Surveyor Roland Kambasi, North Savannah North Northeast Regional Rep, Surveyor Dr. Andrew Shea, Upper West Regional Rep, Surveyor Sally Esipo Bitete, PAC Chair, Surveyor David Natekoda, Ashanti Regional Chair or Rep, Surveyor for Professor Peter Amwa, KNUST,
and also all members on the call. We thank you for your time. Before we move to the closing remark, kindly permit me to invite the CPD chair, Surveyor Steiner Wood. He says he wants to chip in something, so give him your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those of us who made this session both in person and online. I just have been intrigued by the discussion we've had today, and particularly the issues that we've discussed in terms of how we will conduct ourselves out there championing our noble profession. I think some thoughts that I have that I thought I'll share is whilst we're out there representing the institution, one of the guiding principles that should come before us is due diligence. We all have several levels of professional experience and exposure, but in your mind, whilst you're out there, you're not there as the member of GHIS. You are there as GHIS, including yourself. It would be prudent to exhibit proper execution of your service. Something that you should keep asking yourself, if I was standing there looking at my colleague saying this, would I applaud him or not? It's a self-check. It's a self-regulatory activity. So let's be guided by some basic principles of our profession. Is it correct? Am I exhibiting integrity? When Vice President was making his presentation, he spoke about a lot of things. He says, let's assess ourselves. It is true that some institutions that we represent on the ETC do say that. And I'm an example. If I don't go and I tell my board that, look, I'm not coming, they'll say, when are you ready? When are you available? That shows something. So I would like to leave that message with us. Whilst we are out there, do the best that you can. Make an impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, our CPD chair. You can do better as he takes his seat. We welcome our chairman to give his closing remarks. Surveyor Nana Nyamacheba Afo. Let's appreciate him as he comes.
Thank you once again. Just to borrow the last speaker's submission, I'm also intrigued, and you would also share the same sentiment with me that it's been very insightful. We've had a very fruitful session, and I was just engaging with Vice Chair, and he said that I think that we should have had the media here, because a lot of things that we have said here are very important, and we believe that some of these things should have been out there in a very nice way just to project us. A lot of people would have loved to have this opportunity, and I believe that you would bear me out, and for which reason a lot of us have really mentioned training. What we are doing is quite novel. A lot of the institutions that represent do not have this opportunity, and I thank the vision of the ESCO and the CPD chair for organizing this. Please, if you want, let's give a resounding. We also want to thank, before I go on to the meet, I don't want to sit before I do that, thank especially facilitator. We couldn't have had any better person than him. His exposure is on point, and we thank God that he's one of us and he's a quantity surveyor too, and a great asset to the institution as well. Anyway, to just get to a few things. First of all, with training. Members will recall that we have the Center of Excellence, which we've mentioned severally. There are a few twists and turns here and there regarding the center, as in the hard core, the building itself. There's a ton of events. I am not here to announce that. President, I believe the ESCO of GHIS will be in a better position, I'm sure, once the opportunity presents itself. But what is exciting and interesting is that now the Center of Excellence, the soft side, has really kick-started. Please, I think it's a welcoming thing that we have to appreciate. And what is refreshing is that there are even anchors for the various divisions who have been actually now put together as a team, who are going to coordinate teams, coordinate the training, develop models for our training and all of that. The issue of training will not only focus on our members from what we have just heard here. It means that there's an opportunity to expand, to also extend this training to other members that we find on our committees. The onus is on us to project ourselves, to make the noise of this Center of Excellence, and also rake in some amount or some proceeds from these trainings. Very important that we do that. So it's not only for our members, we're going to expand it. And let me also say that already with the traction going on and our name out there, a lot of requests are coming through. A lot of requests. Institutions are approaching us for training and all of that. So I think that we are well placed now, and we so would take the advantage to push the rest of us. I want to touch on a few other things with SIPs. Just a month ago, we had a visit, a courtesy call on us, and I was part of the team with ESCO. We received the Chartered Institute of Procurement, and Supply, international, non-local. I think we've had previous engagement with the local, but there are a few things. They want us entry with ethics and all of that. We've had a long, but this is a straightforward. They are offering us a management route. I think it's been there all along, but they find us very strategic members to be part of it. And by so, this engagement is really taking a top notch. We've had the CEO together with the president, ESCO, and everyone have had other engagements, and it's really far now. I think an MOU has been drafted to engage them. Has it been done yet? Not yet. So, but I've seen the drafts at least. So we are yet to sign an MOU with them, and by so doing, we'll be encouraging our members to also go through this route. Very important. Then, before I conclude, I want to also tell members that as part of taking this forum a top notch, and our development and training a top notch, we are going along. We've developed some performance evaluation forms, and there are two ways. It's both ways. We would have our members report to us. Maybe we have had dates. There's a quarterly design that we want. We've designed a Google form for the ease of filling and all of that. So this will be brought to the attention of members. So we will report on the issues. We are not supposed to divulge a lot of information, but at least the limited information, then the ones that will not really put us in a conflict of interest situation have all been designed properly. And we expect members, feedback from members every quarter. Then also, the institution also has a draft that we want to now push to the institutions that we serve for feedback. I think that it should be a two-way. That way, the accountability is not only one-sided. And so it will bring some transparency and even credibility to our members that serve. And again, I believe this is quite novel. I've not seen it. I've served on a number of ETCs. I've never seen anything. Although that sometimes, just like Surveyor Steiner said, without you, they can't sit. I've had about 4 that was traveling outside of the country. They said they will wait for you. Me, please, when are you coming? And you have ministers say, oh, okay, let's reschedule. If it's not there, we can't approve. That makes us very important and relevant to the institutions. And I believe that a lot of us are like that. We find ourselves. So we should keep on asserting ourselves in these various areas that we find ourselves. There's also GANEPS. GANEPS is almost becoming an animal. I was on an ETC yesterday, and I realized that I don't know whether it's a back-end entry, whether the professionals that handle these things are really also a problem. But I realized that I saw something in a procurement plan that says national restricted tender. I've never seen it before. So quickly it prompted me and I asked, what is that? Then he said, oh, that is what GANEMS provide. And that is, I said, no, please give me the, so I had, fortunately, normally I go with my PPA. Then I refer to the clause or the article where the thing is to. Then I read it. I said, well, there's not, it doesn't recognize this. National restricted tender. What is that? And so what I've come to realize is that our procurement guys, with all respect, with all due respect, are not challenging even the document that should serve all of us. And so quickly I told them that so far as I sit on this entity, so I had a couple of them. I identified 2. One is got to do with someone, they have to put someone there all throughout the quantity. Otherwise it will not reflect. So some go various, there's no consistency, most of the things. So then I told them that we should quickly write a report to PPA to say that the description is at variance with what the law prescribes. And they gladly were happy to accept this. Again, on the issue of our involvement, I think somebody mentioned, I think it's got to do with commitment authorization. This has extensively been discussed at the divisional level. We want to take this up. Again, just like the case of getting the value for money, we were able to get through to the value for money. Steps are being taken to make sure that these things are corrected so that we can get into that space. We realize that this commitment authorization is quite bizarre. We never consulted us. Yesterday, like this, I was with a finance lady. She's a legal officer at the Ministry of Finance. And when I pointed the issues out clearly to her, she quickly acknowledged, said, it's true. We never consulted you. Can you write to us to correct it? And I said, there was an issue of politics, and we are on air, but I need to be careful. Because of our law, pushing our law, sometimes you need to be a bit tactful how you project some of these things. So what she said is that they are open. And fortunately, the head of research is a church member, is a very good friend at the Ministry of Finance. And I said, okay, now I have the leeway. So she prompted me that if I know her, then quickly, once it gets through her, and she mentioned the appropriate places that we should distribute this thing to. And he said, we'll be heard. That is on the issue of fluctuation, delayed payment. You recall that law that they passed at our back door. Very important. So these are the issues. Okay. So members, you will agree with me that today's engagement has not only been fruitful, but it challenges us as professionals to be courageous enough to uphold what is right, what is fair and accountable, even when it is inconveniencing for us. As quantity surveyors, we must never become silent observers where professionalism is expected to speak. We must be principled where compromise is easy. That is what we've learned in this meeting. We must also remain objective where pressure exists. Very important. We must also remain guardians of value for money wherever we serve. It is true that from the success of this forum that it's not only measured by today's attendance, but by the quality of decisions we make after leaving this room. Very important. Once again, before I sit, permit me to sincerely thank our facilitator, our CPD subcommittee, and all participants, far and near, because we've had people coming from Northern region. We appreciate your coming, for making this program impactful and meaningful. Let us leave not here only informed, but inspired to elevate the standards of our profession and strengthen accountability within Ghana's procurement system. Thank you very much.
Give it up for Che. Do it better for him. All too soon, we are gradually getting to the end of the program. The best is always left for last. There's one person here. If I don't introduce the person, I'll be in trouble. He's a divisional committee member and a very good friend of mine. Surveyor Benjamin Kwesi Labi. Put your hands together for him. I better get it right. Kindly take note of the following announcement. Our monthly CPD is coming on Monday, 25th May 2026. We'll be circulating the flyers soon. Kindly take notes and participate. Then our annual QS conference, as we all know, is happening live at Tamale. We have 2 dates confirmed now, but the approved will be announced in due course. We are considering from Wednesday, 30th September to Saturday, 3rd October 2026, or Wednesday, 7th October to Saturday, 10th October 2026. As I indicated, the approved date will be communicated to you soon. Then on Tuesday, 26 May, 2 of our distinguished members, Surveyor PP Kojo Huwabu and Surveyor Peter Amwa, are launching their new book titled Professional Practice for Quantity Surveyor. Let me take it again. Professional Practice for the Quantity Surveyor and Construction Cost Practice. It's happening live here on Tuesday, 26th May. Please, let's come and support these noble. Time is 5:30. Thank you very much. That's why you are the only secretary. 5:30. Please, PM, obviously. You got me there. So PM, please let's come and support them. They are all quantity surveyors, and no better audience should be expected than quantity surveyors coming to support one of their own. One has been a past president. He served this noble institution for years, rose up to become a past president, and now a past president. And the other has trained most of us here at KNUST. The little we can do is to come and support them. Thank you very much. Let me invite my co-MC to give us the vote of thanks and closing prayer. Then we'll be out of here. Put your hands together for my co-MC.
Thank you, Secretary. all too soon we've drawn curtains to the close of today's forum. First and foremost, we thank the Almighty God for gathering us here. We also thank the Executive Committee and the CPD committee, subcommittee of QSD. We also thank our facilitator, Surveyor Osei Achimambedu, our Vice President. We also thank the CEO of Ghana Institution of Surveyors, Surveyor Mrs. Zida. We thank all subcommittee chairs. We also thank all members present physically and virtually. And lastly, all those who supported the program who are not here. Shall we rise for a closing prayer? Forgive me, we acknowledge our Honorary Secretary, Surveyor Beatrice Akpene-Kom. Shall we pray? Our Lord and Master Jesus, we thank you once again for today. We thank you for bringing us here in your presence to study, to upgrade ourselves. As we are leaving, we commit our body, soul, and spirit into your hands. We commit this great institution into your hands. We ask for it to grow from one level to the other. We commit our handiworks. We ask for you to bless our handiworks, our family, and anything that concerns us. We give you glory in the name of Jesus, we've prayed. Amen.
So, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for coming. We hope to see you next year. And those on the call, thank you so much for joining on the call. We appreciate your time. Thank you. Good night.